I'm really excited to bring this to y'all today, and I know so often we go to conferences or on webinars, and there's somebody's hitting sort of the red alert button to say if you don't get this done today, everything is going to kind of go sideways. I really try to avoid saying anything along those lines. However, I think this is definitely something making sure that you're on today and on for the whole time. And this is really something that kind of needs to go to the top of your to-do list. And I can sit here and say that. However, we're going to show you why that's important and specifically what you can do for your school to be really relevant in AI. And as it says right here, how to future-proof your school for SEO and for AI and beyond, whatever they start calling whatever SEO is for chatbots. We have our own terms, and you'll hear some of those pieces as we move through. So, for the past couple of years, I have I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, and there's a lot of people that I follow and stuff that I like to read. And Reggie and I guess, indirectly met. We started following each other, or we connected with each other on LinkedIn, and really over the past number of months and really beyond months, I've been just blown away by what Reggie has produced as far as content is concerned. And I asked him, I said, hey, I think I know a fair amount about this stuff. I'd love to, give you a chance to kind of tell all the stuff you've been talking about. And in our preliminary chats, I've just really been blown away and kind of taking a back seat to all the stuff that he knows. So I want you guys to be interactive as we're here together. So we are going to ask you to use the chat to provide us some information to kind of help us go along. But before we even get into that, Reggie, you want to tell the folks about yourself?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Trevor is very kind. I have to say that is, thank you for your kind words, Trevor. I'm glad that we became LinkedIn buddies. And yeah, I'm digital media and content manager at Fort Worth Country Day, a private school in Fort Worth, Texas. I have been working with the web for 22 years. You could say I got my start with digital media back when we used tables for HTML layout. No kidding. Does anybody remember that even? That quickly became one of the worst moves in web history, as the person who recommended that in their Killer Websites series recanted his position and said the web is dead and I killed it, because with tables you can't have flexible media for different platforms. So that's where I got my start, was making websites with tables, then quickly shifted away from that to our much more CSS style sheets. Many of you probably don't even know what I'm talking about because you haven't been around that long working with websites. But 20 years in digital content, I've been working on telling brand shaping stories that increase interest and engagement. And for 3.5 years, I've been in-house at the school, although at a previous nonprofit I worked at, there also was an education component that I helped market for. My favorite part of working at a school is the amazing learning experiences I see every day. We really have a great story to tell. The things that the kids get to experience is something special. And I think your schools are probably all the same. And that's why it's special to be able to learn how to tell that story and make sure people can find your story. And a fun fact, I originally wanted to be a research physicist when I grew up, but calculus derailed that plan. And so I went into something easier like communication.
Awesome. And I see a lot of familiar names, a couple that I don't really recognize, but it's great to see so many people back on a Truth Tree webinar. So if you are back, you've heard most of the stuff that you kind of see here. I started my career as a teacher, moved into admissions and marketing, started Truth Tree 6 years ago. I've been doing it full time for 5 years. One of the things that I love to do, and you can see my little fun fact here, is when I take breaks, I go upstairs and I fiddle around with the guitar. I've taught myself about a year and a half ago to kind of play the guitar, but every time I take a little bit of time off from it, I just get really frustrated because the fingering and picking and strumming and all of that stuff, it seems to kind of go by the wayside, and that's when I'm off of it for a few minutes. And I was driving back from the Virginia Association of Independent Schools conference yesterday, and probably during that 2.5, 3 hour drive, there were more AI bots that kind of came around. beyond the ones that I talked about at the conference yesterday. Missy even alerted me to a new one today. What was it called, Missy? It was
That
was
one
that
was called Poe.
Poe? I hadn't heard of POE, I guess dot com, and so now I'm gonna play. I've been playing with that one today, and I'll continue to play with it as we go along. So, hopefully you are here live, because if you're watching this recording in 2 weeks, you're going to say, wow, this is really old dinosaur type information, because all of this stuff is absolutely positively happening so fast. So, Reggie, one of the things that I loved about our chats, because this is really kind of how I learn best, is kind of through storytelling as opposed to just here's some facts and figures and stuff like that. And I loved your book signing analogy to kind of get us kind of started with that. You want to share that with
Okay,
me?
yes. So I want you to visualize you have finally done it. You've written that book. You knew you had a book in you and you wrote it. It's an autobiography. You hired an agent. The agent connected you to a major publishing house who decided your life was interesting enough for a major publishing and release of your autobiography titled Just Me, My Interesting Life. And there you are, sitting at a table in a metropolitan bookstore, signing books at the first stop on a lengthy book tour. You feel a sense of pride, of course, because you've really expressed your perspective in this book. You've really shared where you're coming from. You feel like people will get you. You've told stories about interesting things. You've talked about some of the bad times as well as the good times, the struggles you've been through. You've talked about the great things in your life, the people you care about, the interesting things that have happened to you. And this is something you're really proud of. You even have in the center, there's a section of color photos of some of the important moments in your life. And here you are signing books. And as the crowd begins to taper off a little bit for a certain period of time, you decide you want to go over to that section where your book is going to live on the shelf. So you wander into nonfiction in this large bookstore and you find your book there, Just Me, by you, sitting on the shelf. You pull it out with pride, a tear comes to your eye, and you feel humbled as you see a biography of Elvis Presley, of JFK, and some other things around there. And to consider that you're there on the shelf with them, this is a special moment for you. And just as you're about to walk back up to the table, something catches your eye. There's another book with a similar title, and it's got a similar image on it. You pull it out and look closer, and you feel like, is that another photo of me from the same photo shoot? Except you're wearing glasses in that photo, and you don't wear glasses, so that's strange. You quickly dig into it and realize that it's got stories about you in it. And some of them are not as flattering as the versions that are in your book. There are some exact extracts from your book where it's copied it verbatim and put it in this other book. And there are some places where it's got it all mangled and messed up. There are quotes from you. There are stories that other people wrote about you that you had no idea they even knew about this. And it's not as flattering as your book. You put it down and you spot a magazine style book that says photos of you, and you look through it and you've got lots of photos. Some of them are actually of you, others are not. There's one of a sheepdog, which is really strange, but it has your name underneath it. And there's photos of other people that look nothing like you, but most of them either are you or look like you. And some of them catch you in unflattering moments, and you feel a bit like the photos that I selected for my book were much more carefully selected. This does not portray me the way I wanted to be portrayed at all. Yeah, there are some great quotes and some good photos that still show and display your true self. And finally, you see one more book that says quotes of you, and it's got special quotes from you. Some of them are taken out of context and actually kind of make you sound like a jerk. And some of them actually make you sound pretty wise. Some of them are mangled once again and are all twisted around. There's a quote by Gandhi that's attributed to you, and you don't know how that got in there. But it's this mesh of all these other things. You're exasperated. You set down this other book, you cling tightly to your book against your chest as your source of comfort, and you finally realize and say out loud, I'm not the only one telling my story. And my book is not the only source of information about me.
And Reggie, how is this possible? Why is this a thing? Where is this coming from?
This comes from the fact that your approach to the web at one point in time was to create this nicely packaged website that told your story just how you wanted it to be and made your organization look the way you wanted to portray yourself, make your school look like the amazing place that you know it is. But really, the internet is full of touch points that shape your narrative. Some of them you have control over, a lot of them you have control over. And I'm fond of saying that while your website is your cornerstone of your digital presence, the touch points across the digital landscape also help shape the narrative. And some of them are by other people. There are reviews, there are recommendations, and there are places where you can put content as well, which we'll talk more about in a minute. And filling out your digital footprint is an important thing you can do. But ultimately, it's similar to the bookstore in that what you're going to find across the internet, and especially as AI enters the picture and other sources of content, is that there are different perspectives on what you thought was your story. Sometimes they'll align with you and they'll help accentuate your story and they'll make you seem even more authentic because they'll verify what you're saying and validate what you're saying and show this third-party verification. And other times they might take away from it. Sometimes they'll get the facts completely wrong. Sometimes they'll, get your name wrong. But a lot of the time, you just have to recognize that you're not the only one telling your story in the digital landscape. And that's why it's important to set yourself up for success by doing the best job you can of preparing your digital footprint to represent you both in the world of search, but in the world of AI as well.
So two really good points Reggie makes here is one, with AI search, with chatbot search, it's pulling information from numerous different places to create one story. And a lot of that information is coming from independent sources like reviews or Facebook comments, things like that, things that you cannot control. The other piece of that is when people are searching, and we're going to go through this practice real quick, when people are searching using chatbots like Gemini or Poe, which is the one I just found, Pi.ai.com, ChatGPT, which I didn't include here just because the information stops. I think it's, where are we at now? October 2023, I think is the time. So we want the most updated information. So what I'd love for you to do right now, because obviously you're on your computer, go to your favorite chatbot that you like to use. And if you haven't done this practice yet, I'd be kind of surprised. But what I want you to do is type in what are the best private schools, best, charter schools, whatever kind of school you are at sort of the most general level in city, region, state, wherever you try to identify yourself or wherever you want to be searchable. Do that right now. It'll start to generate. Two things I want you to provide for us. One is your school one of the generated answers, responses to the prompt? And how many are there? How many total single school listings do you see? So give me a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Usually it stops around there. And a Y for yes if your school is on the list, and a no, obviously an N for no if your school is not on the list. And put those in the chat. Give me a number and either a Y or an N in the chat as you go through this quick little practice. Karen, you win. You're the first one. Oh, Reggie, you're cheating. 10. Terry, what did you use to get 10? What platform?
ChatGPT.
C5. Usually I see 5. I was kind of surprised. Karen, what were you and Kathy or Reggie? I mean, you're right here. What were you using to produce 3?
I think I looked at that in Copilot. I'm going from a previous time when I looked it up. I didn't look it up just now. I looked it up on my phone last night.
Oh, all right. Good. We got a good back and forth of yeses and nos, yeses and nos. Well, I mean, this really is how people are going to search moving forward. Why go through all of the Google search results when I can just ask what's not an expert, but at least somebody who knows a lot of information. When I say he or she, I mean it is that chatbot. It's being delivered right there. And I see, 3, 5. There are more than 5 schools or even 7 private schools, very likely in your area. And if there aren't, there aren't. But for the most part, in any major metropolitan area, there are more. So these chatbots, while great, are really bottlenecking the number of schools that are going to get those first impressions that are out there. And unlike SEO, where you can see your you were ranking for a certain keyword, go from 15 to 14 to 10, back down to 12 to 9, things like that. And usually the reasons for that. Maybe there's a new video on your site that's it's causing site speed, or maybe the school down the street has a huge article that went on all the major news networks, hopefully for a good reason, and they've flown up the rankings. But again, this is really this is how people are going to search. And if there's only 5 results, and obviously they're going to do a little bit more research, but if you're one of those 5 or 3 or 7, it is huge. It is going to be absolutely huge. And this is why I love what Reggie has kind of brought to the table for us, is how do you better position yourself? You can't guarantee you're going to be on that list, but how can you better position yourself? And I will take no credit for Reggie's acronym here, which is CTE. So Reggie, I mean, let's just dive into the first one here, and I'll just leave this up here for just a second so everybody can kind of digest a little bit of what C, T, and E means. We've got a lot of acronyms in this space, and we'll probably use a few today. And if you're like, what does that mean? Put it in the chat. If you don't know what SEO or I will give Missy full credit, and I hope it does get picked up worldwide. Airo, AIRO, which is artificial intelligence results optimization, which is truth tree is what we call it, that if we help one of our schools get on that list of 3, 5, or 7. So Reggie, take it away.
Okay, so the first one in the CET is consistent presence, consistency, cultivating a consistent presence across the digital landscape. So this is where you're maybe not so much thinking in terms of funnels, but thinking in terms of your digital touch points. We mentioned this earlier. You have digital touch points all across the digital landscape, far beyond your website. Your presence on listings, business listings. What's the important one for schools? Niche.com is a big one. Private school review, there's other ones, great schools, those kinds of business listings. Other industries have their own listings. Social media, I think most schools are present there, but having a broad presence on social media that you use, and touch points beyond just your website. Whether or not you get on Yelp or, some of the other places might depend on where your audience is. But those are places where you can not only have a listing, but you can include information about your school. You can emphasize with consistency the important details about your school. You can emphasize your unique selling proposition and your differentiators. There's about me, about us sections in all these different listings, and your Google profile, of course, is a big one. Your Google business profile is huge. Be sure, and if nothing else, be sure you've got information on that one about you. And the more that you emphasize your key differentiators and your key selling points, the more that data gets into the LLMs, because the LLMs can see all these touch points, the large language models, the data models upon which the AI chatbots are based. Also, right now, we're kind of making a differentiation between search engines and AI chatbots. That line is going to continue to blur, because with rich results, we're already seeing AI heavily incorporated into search engines themselves. And I think we're going to see more and more of that. They've made that obvious. Google's search generative experience, more generative search is often what it's referred to, where AI is giving you the kind of integrated overall picture that Trevor just described a minute ago that you'll get from an AI chatbot. That's starting to become closer to the reality in search engines too. So I don't know if at some point they're just going to merge and there's not going to be a real differentiation between them. We'll have to see. The important thing is you want to set yourself up for success with both, and whatever the tools are, and that's what the CET is all about. So consistency across your digital presence, emphasizing your unique selling proposition and differentiators. Branded vocabulary is something that Kai Wright talks about in his book, Follow the Feeling, that successful brands do. And basically, you think about the slogan, "A diamond is forever," from De Beers. It was named by Adweek, or the other one, Advertising Age, was named as the slogan of the 20th century. It's all normal words. Diamond, forever, is, but yet they've kind of taken ownership of it for the way that they've assembled it. And the same way, the idea is that large brands can kind of take an ownership of the way that they put together a vocabulary and have a branded vocabulary. And while you may be more relevant to your local area than a national audience, you can still make consistent use of certain keywords that have meaning to your audience. Again, one of the key things with private schools is we talk about, if your school's like ours, we use upper school, lower school, middle school. People searching use elementary school, perhaps junior high or middle school, and high school. So again, terms that make sense to your audience and can be a branded vocabulary. So the way you say things is important for reemphasizing. I'm not talking about just cutting and pasting the same thing into every spot, because you want to be aware of the platform you're on, the particular touch point you're on, but emphasizing with language that can help become associated with your brand, because those are the keywords you want to see show up. I think Trevor had the aspect, if you're like a STEM school, that was an example that he gave. You want to make sure that you're using that keyword because you want to show up with that keyword associated with you. So if someone searches in AI chat, they say this school is known for its STEM program. So that's the C. Finding a way to express yourself consistently across the digital landscape.
I wanted to just make one quick comment to that. Because this is what I've seen recently, and I think this is something that we're not on the total same wavelength. Then who could be with all of this stuff? What I've started to see, really to my disappointment, and based on what you said too, Reggie, is it's almost keyword stuffing now. I mean, the more we'll just say STEM school, best STEM school in name of the town. We'll say Olney, where I live, because I don't know if anybody on here is from Olney, Maryland. So the more times that shows up online, all right, that's one of the factors that's going to get you on that list of STEM schools. And I'm like, man, this stinks, because back in the day, you remember, it was stuffing keywords behind images or hiding keywords somewhere so you could show up, and Google finally was like, no, we've caught you with that. We're not going to let those happen. But now almost it seems like the independent piece, like asking parents to write reviews. We all want great reviews online, but one of those sort of ethical things is, okay, you want the review, but okay, oh, great, parents, you're going to write a review for us. Could you please use one of these 5 or all 5 of these specific statements to put in the review that says we're the best STEM school, we're the best all-girls STEM school, we're the best Catholic all-girls STEM school in name of the town? Because the more those show up, the more it's telling these bots, okay, this is the best STEM school, it's the best Catholic school, it's the best girls school. So any of those searches, we're going to bullet one of these schools like that list that you have up there. That's not fair. And the other thing that's not fair too is it really is it skews towards high schools. But even over the past week, where I've been telling people it skews towards high schools, Pi.ai has now started to show more K-8s or schools that don't have high schools. So I like to see the evolution there. But for Pi, some of the information is incorrect. So it's saying that it's serves these groups or is known for its academic rigor and it's a progressive school. And the schools are like, we don't say that anywhere. I don't know why it's associating us with that. So it's still a work in progress. And then it goes with human, engaging for humans and easy for bots.
Yeah, and I will say that I think that an important thing is don't get stuck trying to game a particular system. If you feel like keyword stuffing is what's required to rank now, my philosophy, and yours might be different, and that's okay. Don't get stuck trying to game the current system, because that's just going to set you up for failure later when they do catch up to that and say, now we're fixing that problem. So try to think, and that's what leads into the second one, engaging for humans, solve for people. These AI tools and generative search are trying to make a good experience for people. You want to do the same so that you're strategically aligned with them as much as possible. I know they're also trying to sell ads, but so that you're strategically aligned with them at providing a good experience for people, because that's going to help you. So if it comes down to questions of keyword stuffing, and what you should do, try to ask yourself, how's this going to sound to a human? And I say solve for humans, not bots. And so engaging for humans, but yet, so that means providing for humans. Humans love multimedia, videos, images. You can put those on your Google profile. Please do put your best photos there and make sure people can get a glimpse inside your school. I bet some people have never seen the inside of your campus, even if they've driven by your street and driven by your school. But if you put those engaging photos, they'll see that, it'll be engaging. But then also making it easy for bots. There's a couple things you can do. I'll just quickly mention, so engaging for humans, easy for bots. Use structured data. Go to schema.org, ema.org. There are different schemas you can use. At least use one for, I think, organization or nonprofit, depending on the type. But they're for different types of content, you can use a schema. Look into that, because that's really easy for bots to pull info from what I've read. And also, using accessibility best practices. We know that Google prioritizes sites that have accessibility ratings that are very high. It's also the right thing to do to make sure you can be accessible to a large number of people. Look, I don't think your website is going to become irrelevant just because people are searching through AI. I think there will always be people that want to go to your website for whatever reason. So looking at search intent is also a part of engaging for humans, and knowing who wants to see your website while you're at the same time thinking of a future where people go through AI. That's my opinion. I can't predict the future, and Trevor may see it differently, but I don't think you need to trash your website and just start working on ranking for AI. Not that you were saying that, just a side note. So for bots, back to that, I interject. Accessibility best practices and the consistency part that we talked about in the first one also will help make it easy for bots. So reinforcing those points to the LLMs, and remembering that you're trying to make the best experience for people.
Is there what if one takeaway with this, one specific thing that a school could do as far as the E is concerned? What would maybe one or two of those specific tasks or things that they could take away from this that they could do starting today?
I'd say go to your profiles on the different places we mentioned before and get some media on there, get some nice pictures on there. Get some stuff that's going to be interesting and engaging to human beings. Look at it as a person who's researching your school, especially on the big ones like niche, Google business profile, but also look at what your audience is looking at. Where's traffic coming from your website, and focus on those ones and get some engaging material up there. Multimedia is huge. And that's one way for humans. And just start looking into schema.org for bots.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say, niche, private school review, grade schools. It'll be interesting to see how this layout looks in the future, because if you're going to a chatbot, you're bypassing all of those search sites. But at present, the information on those search sites, particularly the reviews, are a lot of what drives the schools that are bulleted. So I'm really interested to see the evolution, because whenever I run this search, and if you've still got that search up that gave you those 3, 5, 7 schools, I would take the time right now to ask it, if you haven't already, how did you come up with those 5 schools, however many? How did these schools get on the list? What criteria did you have? And as I have done this for different chatbots, for different types of searches, I get essentially a lot of the feedback that I've gotten is the expertise and experience of the teachers, which kind of feeds into the EEAT, the experience, expertise, authoritativeness or authority, and trustworthiness, which we're going to get into with the T. But those teacher pages, having them be robust, showing that these teachers have experience, number of years, degrees, linking to any of their professional publications, I'm seeing is huge. And I'm not saying that because I think that's what these chatbots are telling me, or that's what they're producing, saying, here are the reasons why I have ranked that. And if you have a high school, it's college placements, it's SAT scores, and a lot of that is feeding through sites like Niche, Private School Review, and so on. All right,
yeah, and Neil,
go ahead.
I just mentioned real quick, Neil Patel did release in December a study on what he found as well, and it was brand mentions, reviews, relevancy, recommendations, age, the age of your domain name and business, and authority. So it's very similar to the same things we're talking about, along with EEAT. So jumping into the last one, right, to T, which is trust and reputation. Gaming systems, or trying to succeed in the current system, is temporary as they change, but trust and reputation is something you can build, keep on building forever. Invest in public relations and media relations. The LLMs and Google know who's being mentioned in the newspapers and in the news. That even if you don't have a backlink, they know who's being mentioned, and that makes a big difference. Garner reviews, although we should note, Google has frozen reviews for schools since late 2018. That's important to know. I banged my head against that wall long enough to want to make sure everybody knows that. So don't bother asking people for Google reviews. Focus on what's most relevant to you, like Niche and Facebook and some of those others. and provide opportunities for connection and positive experiences with your brand. I think that's a good role of social media, a low stakes opportunity for people to have a positive experience with your brand. And that builds your trust and reputation. People who have a positive experience are much more likely to seek further engagement with you. So that's just a quick overview there of the trust and reputation. We could go into it deeper, but I know we're getting along on time. So Trevor, what did you want to add to that?
No, it's because we want to keep it short, but we've still got 16 minutes, so don't feel like you need to kind of cut yourself off there a little bit. I would say that the trust factor is making sure that and it kind of goes back to all of them, the consistency piece of it, that you're not calling yourself one thing on this website and another thing on this website, because for so long, a lot of marketers said your brand persona should look different on different sites, and I do agree with that. If you're on TikTok, and you're all serious, you're not going to get the views. But if you're all silly and kooky and crazy with videos on LinkedIn, that just doesn't jive with that type of audience. That's not the mentality. When I go to LinkedIn, I'm not expecting to see TikTok songs and people dancing to them. If I did, I'd probably pay more attention to it. But I digress from that. So I think the biggest takeaway that I have from the trust and reputation piece of it is that consistent message. And I think this just goes with marketing, because I think too often we have a marketing platform, we have a messaging platform, and schools will get nervous because, our inquiries are down, our applications are down. It must be the messaging, and they pull that messaging out, and then they start with something new. And essentially, when all of that information, especially that high-level information, is essentially being replenished with stuff, it's not the right signals out there. So you're changing who you are. And I know that sounds silly. You're not changing your name or the grade you serve, but it's still a signal that you're not quite the same as you used to be. So I think for that piece, that's the biggest takeaway. But
I wanted to throw in one
Yeah.
other thing. Can I just throw in real quick? In the book Trust Signals by Scott Baradell, he makes a really good point that is the single most impactful thing you can do for SEO. We're talking about search engine SEO, is public relations, is media relations. He says that's the single most impactful thing. And I think that that's an important point to take away with trust and reputation too. You may think your public relations, your media relations is completely separate from your SEO and your digital marketing, but what we're seeing now with generative search, and what we're going to see even more with AI search, is an integration of all of these together: your PR, your your reviews, your marketing, your advertising, your paid, the pay-still model, paid, earned, shared, owned. All of that's going to be a lot more integrated into some of these things, which is why it's important to do them strategically and consistency. Go ahead, Trevor.
No, I was gonna say I love this quote that you had, and I forget what it was something you said that Missy picked up on, or is in one of your publications. But something you said that struck me earlier, and I really want this message to hit home, because I don't want people leaving here saying, "Hey, we've got to do this, we've got to stuff words and all of these things," because SEO for the longest time was a train that was moving at 2 miles an hour. If you've ever been at those intersections where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be here for 20 minutes, because you see the train all the way down the line. SEO was so slow, and when shifts happen in the different important parts of it that were weighted with SEO, it took so much time to kind of move along. With Arrow, with AI results optimization, we've already seen where they have moved quickly in different directions. Best, top, premier, we all want to be that school. A lot of schools will have those words in their metas, in their H1, H2 tags, in their footer description, things like that. Now Google's saying, well, you got to prove yourself. I want to see why you're the best. Don't tell me you're the best. And what I will say is the one thing that consistently I have found is, and this is why parents want your school, it's the teachers. They want to make sure that their child has highly qualified, highly educated teachers that can work with them where they're at, whether they're, mainstream, they're gifted, they have some learning issues, and everything in between. It's the teachers. And what I've found consistently, big homework assignment, is that having a robust teacher bio section directory, where it's not just the headshot, the name, the degrees, the email address, but having more of that information about who they are professionally. And it's cool to know that they've got 2 dogs and they've got a cabin in the woods, but who they are professionally is what the internet likes to see. And frankly, like I want to see that my kids' teachers have that as well. So if there's one thing that I would recommend, it is, if you can, because not all schools are able to have a robust section. There's a lot of policies. But if you can do it, it's a big undertaking, I know. But that's really where if I were you and I was 1 and 2 ranked there, that's where I would put my focus. And I'm going to put my reputation on the line when I say that, because in 2 weeks, they could be like, nope, it means nothing. And that's how quickly it moves. So for me, that's one where I would rest most of my stuff on, is building out those pages. And I would do it based on those keywords that are most important to your school and how it associates with those teachers.
Hey, I'm gonna jump in real quick.
Yeah,
So
jump.
Kathy threw a question in the chat, and I think it'll take us back to the trust and reputation piece that we were talking about. But what aspect of media or public relations relating to SEO? Reggie, if you could maybe give a couple examples of how you do that at Fort Worth Country Day, I think that would be helpful.
Well, so if the local newspaper is writing a story about you, it sends a signal, and say they mention your school specifically we'll start out by saying in any context they mention your school, assuming it's not a scandal, it's a positive thing. Your PR efforts, the search engines, and assumably the AI LLMs as well, are know that you're being mentioned, and that sends a signal that you're relevant and significant and important in that community. So that's where I think that it's being mentioned, and then that's the first thing. So being mentioned at all sends a signal that you're relevant, right, and important, because other people are talking about you. This is third-party verification. And then if they talk about you in relation to some of the key differentiators you're trying to emphasize consistently, like say you've got a new STEM program that you're launching, there's an article about that, you have both a mention of you and a mention of your STEM program, I think that's going to be even more powerful toward accomplishing your goals. So it's mainly the mentions that sends a signal that you're important, relevant, significant. And I think that sports can be relevant because those are also mentions, but every school does sports. So everybody's getting mentioned with sports, but it doesn't mean that if you have a feature on an athlete of high character and a good scholar athlete, that's not going to help you. I don't have specific research on that particular, if you have a specific sports feature, but I think that, the more you're being talked about, the more it sends a signal that you are relevant and important.
Yeah, so one of the other aspects that has been pretty consistent across all of the chatbots, where I've said, give me the top 5 schools in this city. And then I'm digging into how, why did you list them? And then, well, why did you list this aspect of it? Is, the top 2 are expertise and experience of the teachers. Second one typically is the number of times certain phrases are mentioned across the internet. And I would have a formula that if it's an independent mention, top STEM school by a parent on a review site, that's weighted more heavily than when it's on your site, because obviously you control that message and you control that narrative. And, these chatbots know that. They're learning that. I think the next one down, and it's a pretty significant drop off, are extracurriculars, including sports, that are unique to that specific area. So, football, basketball, baseball, softball, lacrosse, great. Equestrian, fencing, pickleball, any of those things, or any, astronaut club, where we have an after school program where once a week we send kids to the moon. That's super duper unique, and in fact no school has that. If you're the first school that comes up with that, I bet you that would pop you to the top of rankings, at least for that weighted piece. I'm exaggerating, or I'm not exaggerating, I'm making that up because there's nothing like that yet, but something to shoot for.
That's a really good point, because I was answering with the sports and saying everybody has sports. I wasn't taking into account that your sports can be a differentiator. And that's a really good point. If you've got a unique sports, people will want to come there if you match what they're looking for. So that can be a differentiator in itself. And that's something then you want to emphasize.
Yeah. So I see Kathy asks, we submitted press releases. The news outlets didn't always run with it, but a couple of news articles were a win versus none. Yeah, I mean, they really need to be different. Those articles, anything that you submit really needs to be something that's unique and different, and not sort of run-of-the-mill stuff. What we like to use for our school partners is EIN Presswire. EIN Presswire. It's a great place to kind of not throw out, but put some of your press releases in there. If you've ever been on any of those shopping websites or service-based websites where it says like as seen on Fox News, Good Morning America, all of those, which side story, all of that content is now being pushed away. So what I'm about to tell you actually has diminished in relevance literally this week. And that is all of those press releases through EIN and other press release services, they go to all of those sites. So companies that put press releases on there, and it goes to, Fox and CNN, all of these things as seen on, because they have a press release that's on there, and it's usually sort of in the junk section, that not right above the clickbait, but right below the like the sort of the last story, if you will. Google has picked up on that and said, hey, listen, we're not going to show that as relevant. So right now, if you go to Google and you type in best schools in wherever you are, Reddit has popped up, has moved up the rankings, but any of those sort of national websites that may have information about schools in them have really kind of pushed down. So overall, it's going to help schools SEO, I think, in a big way. So it's always interesting to kind of see where different things rank kind of throughout the week now, because those things are changing.
Yeah, forums have really gone up. I'd say I see a lot more forums, both in AI and in SEO. I mean, like you mentioned, Reddit. That should be thought of as another digital touch point. Not that you need to go in there and promote. I mean, you could do a whole thing on Reddit and forum, but I mean, that's another place for people to talk about you and where your story is being told, just like in the bookstore.
Jennifer, what market are you in? I'm curious. Where search volume for terms like best is extremely low.
San Francisco.
If you go to Google Trends and you type in best private schools, these are the ranking by region: Baltimore, New York, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, and then San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose are the top markets over the last 5 years total. So because I mean, we do have, I mean, it is something that people do search for best and top really in every single major market. So I think you would ask, should we pin SEO strategy on the terms here? If you're asking, like, should you call yourself best, top, or premier? 2 weeks ago, I would have said yes. You may not want to sort of put yourself out there in that way. And certainly, there are some schools where, I would say like a Montessori or Waldorf progressive school where they're not trying to be rigorous and elite, because that's usually what people, when they say top or best, that's what they're looking for. I don't really like that that's the fact, but that's what the data says. But now, like I said a little bit earlier, best, top, premier, number one, things like that, Google is tamping down, saying, if you're the best, prove it. Show it to us. Don't tell us it. Show it to us with data and with experience, expertise, and authority.
And I think that that's also for any other keyword you might use. Don't try to be something you're not just to match up to trends either. I think that it's really important to be true to who you are. If you decide you want to go in a different direction and emphasize science or field hockey or whatever, that's a decision for a school. But those kinds of decisions about who you are as a school are intimately related to your SEO, because you can't hide who you really are with this bookstore full of different people telling your story. Would you say that's true, Trevor?
I agree with that. I do. It all. There's one thing to be found. There's another one to, when you are found, if you are worthy of if the value is there for me to inquire and then move through the process to apply and then to enroll. I think that's, ultimately it's quality over quantity. You can get all of the search volume you want in the world, but what does it really mean at the end of the day if it's not affecting enrollment in a good way?
Yeah, you can have interesting blogs. We have one on sportsmanship that is responsible for about 30% of our non-brand organic traffic. It was written by a previous athletic director. It's terrific. It's a great article, and I won't go into detail on it, but it's one that people use in homework reports on what sportsmanship means, defining sportsmanship. It's not one that people use when they're trying to find a school to go to, but it's still nice to provide that value for people and a positive experience with the brand. And I'm sure there are some people that see that when they're researching us too, but it's, again, like Trevor said.
Any other questions?
Hey, I'm Jennifer and I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. So just checking in. I'm at an elementary school, so just interested in finding out more information about AI and our footprint and just seeing how we can improve our footprint and in our market, really.
Well, I think the best thing to do is if you go over to our Truth Tree's resource section, we've got tons of blogs and webinars and shorts and all sorts of stuff to, a lot of DIY stuff on there. So
I think I'm just dipping my toe into it. So
there you go.
There you go.
I'd say we're all just dipping our toe into it from a certain perspective, don't you think, Trevor?
Into what specifically?
Into AI, AIRO.
Oh.
I think we're all just dipping our toe into it. So nobody's behind on this. Don't feel like we know and we're way ahead. Everybody's dipping their toe into it. It's changing fast. And that's why we want to help you set yourself up for success for the future with a philosophy that's going to be successful with search today and search down the line, rather than getting stuck chasing shiny objects.
Reggie, I really appreciate you being on with us today, taking time away from your school day. I mean, this is what Missy and I do, all this research and work for our partners. So I appreciate you taking time out of your day, especially as we move towards the end of school. And I want to thank everybody for being on today. Really appreciate it. Have a great end to the school year. And for some, it's winding down. For some, it's pretty much just over. Have a great summer. And this is definitely something that, you want to have top of mind throughout, throughout the next few months and into the fall. And obviously in the fall, we'll see where AI gets us as far as how searching and how parents are really going to search for value, find and enroll in schools. Take care, everybody.